Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Anna Manuel. Governor Hochul has signed a new law that will make landlords disclose a property's flood risk. Big Fox's Josh Feldberg tells us how this will affect renters moving forward.
Every county in New York has issued a flood disaster declaration in the last decade. A new law signed by Governor Hochul comes in response to an increasing number of floods due to the effects of climate change. The law, which will take effect in June 2023, requires residential leases to include the property's prior flooding history and current risk to future flooding. Property owners must also include information related to property damage due to events such as heavy rainfall, coastal storm surges, or river overflows. With the Southern Tier's history of flooding, many leasers may be affected by this new law. 2022 marked the 50th anniversary of Hurricane Agnes, a tragedy that took the lives of dozens across the Southern Tier. At the time, Hurricane Agnes was the most destructive hurricane in American history, causing over $3 billion worth of property damage across the region. More recently, in August of 2021, a flash flood across Steuben County saw some homes take on over 3 feet of floodwater. Nearly 8 inches of rain was recorded in the region in under 72 hours. An estimated 120 homes were damaged in the flooding. Representatives across the state are agreeing that New Yorkers deserve to know the costs and risks of flooding when deciding on a place to call home. Josh Feldberg, Big Fox News, Steuben County.
Greenidge Generations has begun the installation of wire screens on its water intake pipes in Seneca Lake. The crypto mining plant was ordered by the DEC to install the wire screens after concerns were raised about Seneca Lake marine life being drawn into the plant's intake pipes. The company reportedly had a deadline of January 20th, 2023 to install the screens. Local environmental groups are claiming the DEC pulled an 11th hour bait and switch to extend the deadline, which was originally set for September 30th. Greenidge now claims they have met all deadlines from the DEC and are now following proper operating procedures. Wegmans Market's recalling 3 products due to a possible salmonella contamination. The recalled items are Wegmans Farm and Orchard microgreens, baby kale, and baby spinach with sweet pea leaves and catgrass. According to the FDA, salmonella can cause serious and sometimes fatal infections. If you have had any of the recalled items, and if you still have them, don't use them. Instead, you can return the items to Wegmans for a full refund. Incoming Republican Congressman George Santos says he embellished parts of his resume during his successful campaign for the U.S. House. And now some Democrats are calling for him to step down. Madeline Rivera has more from Washington.
Make some noise! Congressman-elect George Santos under fire. The New York Republican admits he lied about his past while running for a Long Island House seat.
I want to make sure that if I disappointed anyone by resume embellishment, I'm sorry.
His admission breaks a long silence after the New York Times challenged his professional background and education earlier this month. Santos confessed he never worked for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup directly. He also admitted to never graduating college, after saying he got degrees in finance and economics from Baruch College and New York University.
A lot of people overstate in their resumes or twist a little bit. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of that. I'm just saying I've done so much good work in my career.
And Santos is denouncing reports that he misled voters about his Jewish ancestry. His campaign website stated that his grandparents fled Jewish persecution, but he told the New York Post, "I am Catholic. Because I learned my maternal family had a Jewish background, I said I was Jewish."
I'm not a fraud.
The 34-year-old, who is the first openly gay Republican to win a House seat as a non-incumbent, says he still intends to serve out a full term. But his lies have Democrats calling for his resignation. His former opponent is also digging in.
He defrauded the citizens of our congressional district. This is much bigger than Democrat and Republican politics.
Republicans clinched a slim majority in November, but House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has yet to comment on these new revelations. In Washington, Mallory Rivera, Fox News.
The recent large spending bill by Congress may have created a gap in medical coverage for millions of Americans, according to a new report. The Kaiser Family Foundation says that an estimated 15 to 18 million Americans could lose Medicaid coverage as a result of the $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill. States could boot some recipients starting April 1st. A report says other options for those losing Medicaid would be to seek employer coverage, the Affordable Care Act marketplace, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. The greater Buffalo area is still dealing with the fallout from the deadly and historic blizzard. At least 50 deaths reported nationwide from the massive pre-Christmas storm. 35 of those deaths in western New York and at least 28 in the Buffalo area. Max Gordon reports.
More heartbreak for communities in western New York as the death toll continues to climb in the wake of last week's massive winter storm.
This is probably the worst storm that Buffalo has seen in over 50 years, and maybe one of the worst storms ever.
The Buffalo area was one of the hardest hit, the storm being blamed for the deaths of more than 24 people in western New York, and more are expected as the community cleans up.
It's been a tough assignment for our first responders to find members of our community deceased, some on the street, in snowbanks, some in cars, and some in homes.
A state of emergency remains in effect in Erie County after the massive storm brought strong winds and more than 4 feet of lake effect snow. And it's not over yet. Residents are still dealing with lingering snow, still falling today. On Monday, President Biden offered the support of the federal government.
I'm grateful for their interest in helping all of us be made whole after going through this.
Officials closing major highways and putting a driving ban in place to create safe and easy passage for first responders, and also allowing plows and utility crews to clean up and restore power to the thousands still in the dark.
Please, please, please do not drive in the city of Buffalo.
Buffalo's airport remains closed through at least Wednesday morning, but in a sign of recovery, supermarkets reopening Tuesday. Snow in the region is expected to taper off by Tuesday night. In Buffalo, New York, Max Gordon, Fox Weather.
Still ahead on Big Fox News, the future of Title 42 and its impact on migrants at the southern border. Plus, your forecast. Stay with us.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Well, Mother Nature seems to be feeling some remorse after dealing with a big cool down in the temperature trend, as we will start to see some of those 40s return to the forecast. Now, we did only see a high of 10 on Saturday, return to those 20s. Today, we were within those mid to even upper 20s, and we'll take hold of even the 30s as we head into our Wednesday forecast. Now, note that we do stay under those mostly cloudy skies through the overnight, but note that we have the southerly wind in place, as that's what's giving us some warming, and we will start to talk about some of that warming and some sunshine. We'll start to see some peaks of it work its way into the forecast in our Wednesday, and then some sunnier skies as we head into Thursday. We'll see that the warmth is even going to give us the potential of seeing highs into the 50s. Now looking record-breaking widespread as records look to be set into those lower 60s, but still some unusual warmth compared to talking about the cold that we were dealing with last week. Nearly, again, that 50-degree temperature trend pretty much flip from what we were seeing last week to what we will be dealing with for these last few days of 2022. And speaking on flipping over that calendar page, it looks like we could have a wetter New Year's. Looking at running from New Year's Eve into the evening hours through the daytime forecast, could have some wet weather. So make some plans for some rainy conditions. However, temperatures though look to continue to stay above average. So as we talk about above average conditions, also note that not only for this last few days of the new year, but even into the first few days of the new year, this warmer than average weather pattern looks to be likely to stay in place. So not huge drops ahead in any of the forecasts yet. Now, note that we still have a few more months of winter, so there still could be chances for more of this cold, but we'll at least enjoy the rebound after some of this cold weather. We even see that we're climbing up to those lower 40s after starting off the day into the upper 20s. We have that southerly wind about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Note that it could become a little bit blustery by the end of the day. We'll start to see some of those peak wind gusts get up to 25, 30 miles per hour, which is what's going to help to continue to bring this warming trend. So as we are looking at settling out anywhere from those upper 30s to these lower 40s for high temperatures, which is more than 5, even up to 10 degrees above that average of 35 degrees, we'll continue that surge of warming as we head into that Thursday forecast with the chance to bring those mid 40s on the board. So now we're more than 10 degrees above average, and you're going to have more sunshine in place. So if there is any areas that are seeing some of that snowfall linger, you're going to definitely see some big snow melt happen. Now, with the snow melt and then on top of some rainfall in the forecast, the good news is that we aren't talking about any significant flooding concerns. May have to look closer to those lake regions, but locally we will start to increase that cloud cover as we head into the weekend. Keep temperatures though above average. There's that chance to flirt with the 50s on Friday, and then from Saturday night into Sunday, that will be our wettest time period, but still holding on to those 40s even behind that system, where we could continue to talk about a wet weather pattern.
The recent severely cold temperatures serve as a timely reminder of the dangers of the homelessness crisis in the U.S. Alexandria Hoff talks with the leader of the Biden administration's ambitious effort to reduce homelessness by 25% in 2 years.
I came from paying for a 2-bedroom, $2,200 a month, barely making $15 an hour, working 40-plus hours. So, I lost all of that, had to come here.
For 2 months now, Sid has been living in a tent just 2 blocks from the White House. The Biden administration released an ambitious plan to reduce homelessness by 25% by the start of 2025.
We need to be moving with urgency right now to get people stabilized, but we also need to close the gap on affordable housing.
Jeff Olivet leads the agency that developed the plan. He said it will provide federal support for localities where the issue has reached a crisis level, with an emphasis on racial equity. Since the start of the pandemic, the crisis of homelessness has become more visible with the rise of encampments. They've become a major point of contention within urban communities. In many cases, they are cleared only for the tents to return again.
When all we do is just sweep the problem away and cross our fingers, clear an encampment and hope it goes well, it is almost inevitably going to come back.
Shelters were stretched thin this weekend as temperatures plunged across the country. In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams has called it inhumane to allow the homeless to remain on the streets in frigid conditions. A judge ruled this month that he can continue with a policy that would forcibly hospitalize mentally ill homeless individuals. The Biden administration's plan does not include forced intervention, but it does call for teaching shelters how to provide gender-affirming services to the homeless in an effort to encourage more people overall to seek help.
It's a lot of people prefer to be out here.
Glenn Mackel knows. He had spent 30 years living on the streets. That's in past tense, because with the help of an outreach group, he, just days ago, got a place of his own.
It's a big change because I'm not used to being in my apartment by myself.
In Washington, Alexandria Hoff, Fox News.
The Supreme Court is set to decide whether or not to end Title 42, which allows the U.S. to turn away migrants at the border. The Biden administration calling for the policy to end. Carolyn Elliott has more on that story from El Paso, Texas.
The Texas Department of Public Safety tells us right now there are anywhere from 10 to 20,000 migrants waiting in Mexico for Title 42 to end so they can cross. Right now, we know that the state and the feds are trying to secure this border ahead of time. But as we saw firsthand, migrants and drugs are still getting through daily.
He's loaded. He's loaded.
Riding along with Texas DPS. It won't take long to make a drug bust in a border city.
What it feels like rocks.
2 kilos of meth and what appears to be drugs hidden in Pixie candy sticks. Texas DPS tells us drug busts have only increased in El Paso during the latest spike in border crossings over the last month.
With the migrant activity, we've also seen an increase in the amount of drug seizures with the migrants. The drug smugglers also using this as an opportunity to cross drugs.
Texas DPS tells us the problem could get even worse if Title 42 ends.
Because of the mass increase that we've been having in the migrant activity, we also have the safety concern and public safety concern of the possibility of Title 42 going away. All they can tell us is that there's thousands up to 10,000s, and that we can expect when Title 42 goes away that they're probably all going to cross at one time.
Texas DPS, Border Patrol, and the National Guard worked the holiday weekend, setting up new barriers to try and prevent a mass migration. But securing nearly 2,000 miles of the southwest border is a challenge.
Because we don't know if Juarez El Paso will be hit worse than maybe Eagle Pass, or maybe Reynosa through McAllen, around Brownsville. So we have to take everything on a day-to-day basis. We go to where the threat's at.
Now the final decision comes down to the Supreme Court, which could happen any moment now. Until then, Title 42 will remain in place. In El Paso, Caroline Elliott, Fox News.
Coming up next, we have your daily business headlines. Stay with us. Millions of people around the country have run into flight delays or cancellations over the past week. So what do you do if your flight gets canceled? Well, Cassidy Williams spoke to some stranded travelers in Milwaukee.
It's been heartbreaking and exhausting to keep getting these cancel.
Thousands are getting the same notifications. There's long lines at check-in counters with people trying to rebook.
No flights until the maybe the 31st.
Southwest Airlines customers have felt the bulk of the travel nightmare. The airline canceled thousands of flights over Christmas and more than 20% of flights scheduled today. Fox 6 reached out to Southwest and got the following statement that says in part, quote, "We are still experiencing disruptions across our network as a result of Winter Storm Elliot's lingering effects on the totality of our operation. People are looking at other travel options."
We are planning to drive
from Milwaukee to Florida for a family vacation.
My husband and son are in line to get a rental car.
That's becoming difficult too.
At least an hour wait for down.
Hertz and Avis, two rental car companies at Mitchell International, announced if people don't already have a reservation, there aren't any more rental cars available.
We've been waiting just under an hour. We were lucky.
Daniel Bach and his wife will get home to Denver.
14-hour drive.
One of the few whose travel nightmare is close to ending. For others, it continues. There are hundreds of checked bags at baggage claim. A few told us they've been waiting several days to find their luggage.
It's like bah humbug, for real.
Travelers hoping to catch price breaks in airline flights may have to wait. New data from travel app Hopper suggests air travelers will pay 7% more in January and 13% more in February through April. Now that's because of labor and jet fuel costs. Summer prices, however, well, they could ease back from the highs seen in 2022 when there was a large demand by flyers and not enough flights. Hopper expects there should be more flights this summer and jet fuel prices may also ease by then. And while consumer goods everywhere went up in 2022 from inflation, two usually big ticket items went down in price. You know, your groceries are way up, especially with eggs and margarine jumping 50% and baking mixes up 25%. But if you wanted to watch news about your food price misery, you could do it cheaper. Prices of flat screen TVs fell off about 17%. And if you chose to have a sporting life, overall, the cost of attending sporting events was also down. The cost of buying tickets to follow your sports teams, well, that dropped about 7.2% this year. And the restaurant industry hit hard by COVID, it is bouncing back. A Wall Street Journal report says the restaurant industry is finally erasing job losses and closures and adding employees back. The Labor Department says all but 2.1% of establishments have returned as of last month. In November, 62,000 jobs were added in restaurants and bars, and owners say applications they have increased. Employers have added pay raises and benefits and more flexible schedules for restaurant employees. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, will pay $725 million to settle a lawsuit involving the sharing of users' personal information. The company was alleged to have allowed the firm Cambridge Analytica access to millions of users' information from Facebook and Instagram. The firm supported Donald Trump's presidential campaign in 2016. The case started in 2018 when it was revealed Trump's political strategist Steve Bannon paid a Facebook developer to access the information, which was then used to target voters during the campaign. The settlement is pending approval from a federal judge, and the court hearing, well, it's set for March. We'll be back in just a moment. The internet's favorite word game topped Google Trends' most searched list for 2022. The Year in Search report ranks the top words and phrases in different categories, including the top overall search. And Wordle reached its peak number of searches in February and was most searched for in Vermont. The top 5 also included election results, Betty White, the Queen, and Bob Saget. In terms of most searched in the Near Me, gas prices ranked number 1. Ahead of at-home COVID test. The number 1 search movie was Encanto, and Johnny Depp was the most searched actor. I'm Harriet Wallace. Thanks for watching.